you guys for coming here tonight. This one here is one of those maybe fun little bits of trivia, things like that. You know, those little what's it's, oh, that's an interesting little thing about the bottle. That's a little interesting. Well, it's going to be kind of a bunch of that sort of stuff, but with a few practical applications about what it means to your ability to be as well as you actually want to be. So I'll be finishing the night with this thought, but it's one that I'll open with at the same time. I ask that question or pose things this way: the person that you are today, 2019, is because of choices by and large that were made 10 years ago, whether you knew what the consequence was going to be or not. So the person that you are going to be in 10 years from now, so 2029, is going to be because of whatever you're deciding to do today, whether you know it or not. And I think every single one of us, we look back and we like to say, okay, well, if we had 20/20 vision, yeah, we would do things differently, or we would make certain other choices, or we would realize that there was a consequence to something that we just simply didn't realize back then. And then we try to tell that to other people or kids or anything like that. They don't listen, make the same mistake, but so be it. That's part of the learning process. So I just want to give you a few little tidbits here then tonight about what that means as far as your body and your ability to be as well as you can. So I'm going to open with just 3 very, very general questions. And these are kind of the general questions that I ask everybody when they're first starting out of care. So you guys might remember me asking them. So the first question is, well, what does it actually mean to be healthy? So how do you measure your health? Is your health a matter of how you feel? Or is it a matter of your body working right? So yes, we would like to think that, okay, if your body, and people are going to get things going on in any moment there, but ultimately if your body's working, if it was working 100% perfect, then really we wouldn't be having chronic illness, chronic disease, all that sort of stuff. So really best measure of health is, simply put, is everything working properly? So the second question then is, okay, well, what do you actually want? So, do you want to be healthy? Yes, it's a simple yes or no question. And most people, yeah, I can see you nodding your heads. Yeah, it's like, of course I would. So then there's a third question. All right, so you want to be healthy. Do you know what that's going to take? What would you be willing to do in order to be healthy? Not just now, but 10 years from now.
Yeah, you've got to get out of your comfort zone and make an effort.
Okay, there's certain things that you have to do.
Set goals.
Yeah, a lot of people, we say, oh yeah, I need to do this, I need to do this. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But sometimes the realization is that we don't fully know what it is going to take. So it's really easy to say, right, this is the week where I start fill in the blank. This is the year that I'm going to do this, or I'm going to stop doing that, something like that. But when things start getting just that little bit challenging or hard, we hit that point of resistance, we get complacent and then we slip back into old habits. So if we knew what it took, at the very least we can plan and prepare for that. And as we're doing that, there's 3 forces, I don't care who we are, that none of us living on planet Earth are going to be able to escape. Number 1 is time, number 2 is gravity, and number 3 is life stress. Stuff happens. Unless you have figured out a way to escape each and every one of these, the idea that, okay, well, we can flick a switch, everything's going to be 100% perfect, that is a fairy tale. The idea that, okay, well, if I've got such and such, well, this is the only thing that I have to do, it's going to be quick, it's going to be easy, and there's my health. I can get it in a bottle for only $9.95 at Chemist Warehouse. Doesn't exist, is the short of it. And these are the 3 major sources of stress that doesn't matter who you are, how good you try to take care of everything, they're going to affect us in one way or another. So same thing, the same idea is anything that we're able to do that's able to work against these forces is going to allow us to be as well as possible. And this has gotten a little bit more media attention, I think in the last 10, 20 years or something like that. The difference between what we call a person's chronological age versus their biological age. So the idea that the person could be the same age, let's say 50 years old, okay? So you can't change the day that you were born. You cannot change your chronological age. But based on the amount of gravity, life stress, and all of the stuff that you have done, you could be 50 years old and you could have destroyed yourself so bad that you're a mess. Wheelchair, immobile, basically like you're 70, 80, 90 years old. Flip of that, person can take exceptionally good care of their health, and they're able to do things that an average 30-year-old can't. So just because a person, and I hear this one all the time, people say, oh, I can't do fill in the blank anymore, and it's because I am getting older. Well, yes, we can't undo the stress of time, but there's the difference between the chronological age and the biological age. It's very, very possible for a person, again, it doesn't matter if they're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, where if you start doing some of the right things, what happens, you can't change your chronological age, but the biological age can start to go backwards. So you may very well be getting older, but the stress on your body by doing some of the right things is going to make a difference. And the body is not stupid. When it comes to healthcare, medical care, you name it, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. Nobody has it all 100% figured out. If we did, there'd be no such thing as disease. We'd be able to fix everything like that, like it didn't even exist. So when there is something that happens in the body, there's always a reason. Body's not weak, brain is not stupid. But we don't always know what that reason is. But nevertheless, it's going to follow some very, very specific rules. So if you were, for example, doing, and I think you guys have seen this particular slide before, let's say that you were doing all of the right things in your life. And what would be some of those right things that you can think of? So if I were to say, okay, I'd like you to convey your wisdom to the people of the world. How do you enjoy the years of your life to be healthy and as well as you possibly can be? What do you have to do?
Exercise.
Eat properly.
You've got to eat proper, you've got to exercise, you've got to sleep, you've got to be able to not take on too much stuff, too much stress, all of that sort of stuff. And you need to take good care of yourself, making sure that everything's going to be able to work the way that it can be. As we say, health is when your body is working right. So if you're doing all of the right things, what do you think is going to be the logical end result?
Healthy life.
Healthy life.
Longer, healthier.
Duh. Like I said, things don't happen for no reason. So let's say you did the exact opposite of that. You're not going to eat healthy because it tastes good. You're not going to exercise because it's too hard and it hurts. You need to do something because fill in the blank, you have to do this or this or this or this or this or this is going to happen, and it just never ends. There's no end to that cycle. And then live in the stress and panic cycle that, okay, well, if I have a problem down the track, then I will deal with it then. So being reactive as opposed to being proactive. In other words, this is how you are taking care of your health and lifestyle. What is the inevitable consequence?
Rubbish.
Poor quality of life.
Poor quality of life. And eventually, if you've got breakdown in the body, this is going to lead to those great lifestyle problems that we talk about, collectively known as disease. So this is the cancer, this is the heart disease, this is the diabetes, this is the lung pathology, this is all of that sort of stuff. Now, if I was to ask the question here, remember what we said about definition of health. Health is when your body is working properly, right? So even though I have health and disease here, which of the two is a normal process?
Neither.
They both are. Gold in, gold out. Garbage in, garbage out. That is the only logical conclusion that you can have in either situation. Full stop. And this is how we try to live. We try to get away with this and then look for some kind of magic pill potion, quick easy button that says, oh, okay, well, I can fix all of this stuff because I don't have to take care of it. I just want to be feeling good again on the other side. That, everybody, is called a fairy tale. It doesn't exist. The truth and the reality is that our body is always growing, it's evolving, it's always changing. And that's where I'll be getting in just a little bit here. But in brief, there is no such thing as the human body as staying put. We are either going up, increasing in our overall well-being, or we are going down. Now, to a certain degree, no human being is going to be able to escape gravity, time, or lifestyle stress. So eventually, we're all going to go down. That is simply inevitable. It's one of the rules to being allowed to be this game, or to play this game that's called life. Same breath, how fast do we want to be going down, and do we want to keep going up as long and good as we possibly can? So these are going to be, and there's lots of different models out there, the way that you can describe, okay, these different elements of a person's overall well-being. These are the 5 that I will use. So in brief, a lot of times people use the word anymore mindfulness, the idea that, okay, if we do relaxation kind of exercise, if we don't stress, if we do this and we do that, well, there is no escape to stress. It exists. And if you think that you've gotten away from it, it's going to pop up in your life some way, one form or another. So the real key here is how your body is actually able to respond to the stress. Are you going to let it blow out, or is it something that you're able to take in stride? So the best measure when it comes to stress is, are you able to deal with the different things that are actually happening in your life? Lots of strategies, including meditation, learning to say no to different things, and then actually doing the things as much as possible with the purpose that you actually want to do in your life. So that's one of them. Number 2, this one's pretty self-evident, but blown away still how many people don't do enough of that. It's the reset mechanism. Your body does the best repair work when you are asleep. If you're pushing it or trying to create an imbalance in your physiology over a long period of time, it's going to disrupt that sleep cycle. Your body's not able to do the necessary repair, and it just accumulates over a long period of time. We gotta sleep. Diet kind of speaks for itself. Lots of different opinions on it. Everybody's got one, and nobody has it all figured out, because if so, again, everybody would be having the same diet, 100% healthy, but we don't know, especially genes and all that sort of stuff. Exercise, same thing, doesn't matter what you're doing, you got to be able to move your body. Walking, even walking 30 to 60 minutes a day, massive difference. All kinds of different studies showing that. And then the last one, the idea of what's called coordination. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. In brief, this is kind of a combination of what's happening in both your internal and also your external world. How are you dealing with all of the stuff that's on the outside of you? This is something where you control, again, on the outside of you. This is something you do. This is on the outside of you. This is something you do. This is on the outside of you. But this one here is different. This one is something that's going to be happening on the inside. So we had said in the very beginning, okay, well, what's the best measure of health? Is it necessarily how you're feeling, or is it how well your body's working? It is both. So again, if your body is working 100% perfect, then you should be feeling 100% perfect. So how do we actually measure if your body is working properly? Because ultimately that's going to come down to this thing right here. Every single thing that is going on in your body ultimately is a result of coordinated signals that are coming from your brain, your central nervous system. Now that's the particular role that I have in all of this. So when I'm working on, everybody's here, the neck, I'm not doing so for the sake of just working on the neck so that the neck feels good, or so that this pain goes away or this problem goes away and all that sort of stuff. I'm doing it because it's necessary so that that system that gives your body life, that coordinates all of the processes, is able to flow from your brain down to your body and then back as clear and as well as it possibly can, full stop. If it isn't, so let's say, if you would, that you have a bill that, I don't want to pay this, but there's going to be not much interest, just 1%, 1% compound interest multiplied over a couple months or a few years, maybe a few decades. It's really going to start adding up. And then we say, whoa, we got all these problems going on. I guess it's because you're getting older. Not necessarily. That's the kind of stuff that I'm actually talking about here. So the flip of that is that if we're learning not just to manage our body based on how we feel, but simply put, is the body working as well as it possibly can, realizing that, okay, a chiropractic adjustment, it's not going to fix or cure all of this. No more than to say that exercise, diet cures anything like that. But sleep, exercise, diet, and then having the neck properly aligned, what they do is they allow your body to be as healthy as they possibly can, inside and out. Because the state of that is what is going to dictate which way you are going. So as I said, you're either going forwards, you're going up, spiraling up, or spiraling down. Which way do you want to go? Or at the very least, because again, we're all going to go down, how fast do you want to go downhill? And how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it in a big bang crash or gracefully, comfortably, nicely? And so I want you to give you guys just a little bit of perspective. Just before I do that, everything that I'm saying is making sense pretty much so far? Okay.
I found, yeah, just your concept of the coordination, that was new to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought it was all tied up in the stress, and the way of dealing with stress was important.
Mm-hmm.
But that's separate from your.
It's part of it. It's because as human beings, we are both the physical, so the brain, if you would, but then there's also the concept of the mind. So whether the mind is a property of the brain or if the brain is a property of mind, that's a philosophical kind of question. But you can have two people, let's say all of the exact same set of circumstances, but their mental state, their outlook being completely different. One will respond in a very, very different way than the other. Now, it's not to say that this trumps all of that, because depending on what any person needs in any given moment, some people, this is the number one thing that they need. Or other people, this is the number one thing. Other people, this is the number one thing. And this is kind of the variability of health. So a good chunk of it is, what is the purpose? What is your outlook? What is it that what gets you up in the morning? What can you say yes to? What can you say no to? Who am I? What do I believe? What do I want to do with all of that is what fits into this right here. This then is your body physically capable of achieving that? So let's say that you guys wanted to travel, road trip to the other side of the country, as an example. So you've got the vision, you've got the clarity, you know where you want to go. Oh shoot, but our van is busted. And we don't know how we're going to, it's going to take 3 weeks just for the parts to arrive and then another 2 months to fix the darn thing. So that's what the difference is. The difference is between the mental side of the equation, so mind if you would, and then the physical system, emphasis on nervous system, because that's what's going to control everything going on in the body. And that's, again, from my perspective, that's the chiropractic side of the equation. So I'm not the dietitian, I'm not the yoga therapist, I'm not the psychologist, I'm not the exercise physiologist, I'm not the physiotherapist, etc., etc. That's what I'm working to do to help you guys with in the big
So is that your thinking, is that the head?
That's nervous system. So brain is part of nervous system.
That's the control. And
that's the control
that's
system.
the top of the tree.
Bingo. Ultimately, it's brain and nervous system. They are the top of the tree because they can override what's happening in the heart. They can change what's happening in the abdomen. They can change what's happening. It will be the system that's responsible for changing all of that. So there's a lot of other subparts. Everything matters in the body, but that's essentially the master control system that coordinates. It's the conductor of everything else. And oh boy, does it have a big job. Have you guys ever heard the idea, the expression that the body renews itself every 7 years, something like that, that okay, you are not the same person today that you were 7 years ago. And the reason for that is because all of the cells in your body turn over. Well, that's both true, and it's very not true. And it's because for a couple reasons. Number one, the cells in your body turn over at different rates. Some of them turn over in just a few days, other last you almost a lifetime. So it's not 100% true. But I'm going to be showing you guys a few numbers based on some of the best numbers and information that I can find as far as what it means to this idea of cell turnover, or if you would, the physical version of you. But keeping these concepts in mind, that the physical version of you that you are today, again, is because of the choices that you made 10 years ago based on this stuff. So too, the person you're going to be in 10 years is going to be because of these exact same things that are happening right now. So first up, who are you? You are 76.2 trillion cells, and oh yeah, half of them are not even you. Half of them are bacteria that are either on the skin or form the best part of your digestive system that actually forms the very first line of your immune system. So if a person is depleted of their bacteria, what they could actually do is wipe out all of those initial first line defenders when it comes to the lining of the skin and of the gut. Interestingly, then can become susceptible to other infections. I think you guys have seen the commercial with the little blue guys. Okay, have you had your hair bust today? So the idea that, okay, well, if you get more of the good guys, it's going to overcome the bad guys, something like that. But imagine you wipe the good guys out. So half of your body isn't even you. So that leaves about 72 trillion cells. There comes a point when in numbers where it just starts getting incomprehensible. So I can say 37 trillion, whoop-de-doo. 37 trillion seconds, 1.2 million years. So that's just how many things are going on. And oh yeah, all controlled by this thing. Real important. And interesting, 84% of them are your blood cells. So of the remaining 16% of whatever 31 right there is, I'd have to do the math, that would be, I think maybe about 4 or 5 trillion cells. That's what's left of you. So the bulk is all right there. And I emphasize the idea of the brain because it's only 0.25% of all of them in your body that are ultimately controlling and coordinating the functions of all of the others. So are you guys taking good care of that? Or is it being wasted in front of TVs and phones and all of this sort of stuff? How good are you taking care of your brain? So, what I already talked about, this idea of cell renewal, that your body is continuously replenishing itself. So, if we need new heart muscles, okay, how does the body adapt? Or excuse me, heart cells. If it needs new intestine cells, liver cells, etc., etc. Found this awesome video online. So this is definitely not mine, but I'll just click play. I think that the audio is going to work here. And I'll go ahead and adjust it, because this will just kind of set the stage for some of the numbers that I'll be showing you guys.
Hair on your head is replaced every 2 to 7 years. 100 hairs fall out every day, and new ones grow back in their place. And look at your fingernails. They're completely new every 6 months or so. It turns out it's just a matter of time before almost every part of your body refreshes itself in a similar way. The lining of your stomach and intestines gets pretty beat up. It's constantly exposed to acid and bile. So those cells get replaced every few days, every few weeks, out a new skeleton. A special team of cells breaks down old bone, and another builds new bone. Every 15 years, your muscles are refreshed. You might think you gain and lose fat cells when you gain and lose weight, but they actually just get bigger and smaller. Over the course of 25 years, though, most of them turn over. But there are a few things that stick around for your entire life. About half of your heart stays with you from birth to death because those cells are replaced very slowly. Certain parts of your brain add a few new neurons over the course of your life. The vast majority of your neurons developed before you were born. It's the connections between those neurons, the circuits that store memories, that are constantly changing. And there's one more part of you that lasts your whole life. Months before you were born, a little cluster of cells stretched and filled themselves with transparent protein. As you grew, even after birth, more and more fibers were added, but that center endured. This is your lens, the window through which you are watching this video right now, and its core has remained the same since the moment you first opened your eyes. How old is your body really? Some of it is brand new. Some of it is as old as you. To learn how scientists figured all this out, check out our post at slimbear.tumblr.com and listen to Invisibilia. The latest episode is about whether or not personality persists throughout your entire life. If you have science questions, send them our way, and please subscribe to our channel.
So, let's have a look at some of those fun little numbers here. So, and I'm going to mention why this matters. Remember I asked that question being, okay, do you want to be healthy? Yes or no? Everybody says yes. What are you willing to do with it? Basically, oh, okay, whatever it takes, yeah, I'm going to do it. Do you actually know what that is going to involve? Yeah, we know, okay, I need to exercise, I need to diet and all that sort of stuff. But let me add another question. How long do you have to do it? Because how many people are going to do it till you're feeling good again, but there's a cell turnover. So did you actually make a permanent change? So let's look at a few of these here. So first up, digestion. I've heard it said, this is what one of my instructors at school said. He said that all of us are basically just a big tube. Things in, things out, and it's passed and moved along the way with acid and enzymes and all this sort of stuff. A very, very hostile environment on the inside. So on the inside, all of the tissue or this layer of cell, it's what's called an epithelial lining. That's what the fancy term is. It is constantly being turned over. Constantly. If it wasn't, and if it's not being turned over, that's where you lead to ulcerations, problems, bleeding in the stomach and all that sort of stuff. So that stuff doesn't last for very, very long. Taste buds only last you around 10 days or so. And what these things are, these panneth and these beta cells, the idea is that these are responsible for gland and mucosal excretions. This is what's involved with enzyme production. Okay. So I'm going to start with one of the fun and interesting things. How many of you remember at some point in your life being disgusted by broccoli? Or some kind of food that bleh.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you think, I actually really enjoy this.
That's right.
Or vice versa, something that you used to love, and you have that anymore. Oh my God,
It's horrible.
mac and cheese in a box.
Yeah.
But sometimes comfort food, things like that. So part of it's going to tap into the sensor of the brain responsible for pleasure or pain, emphasis on the pleasure if we like it. But a good chunk of it also comes from your taste buds themselves. So when people say, oh, I need to keep having a certain substance because it makes me feel good, part of that is because the taste buds are sending neural signals to the exact same parts of the brain. When the taste bud turns over, it has the opportunity to make a new kind of connection. So if you're going to want to try eating something different, you got to give it a fair go for at least 10 days. So people when they are, and here's a really common example, where people have become desensitized to the sweetness of sugar. This is especially common in the US, where you have to add the high fructose corn syrup. When you both are over to the US, you'll see, you know it if you have. As a comparison, try a can of Coke here in Australia versus a can of Coke over there. The one over there for you will taste way sweeter. It's because they're exposed to so much sugar over there, they need way more of it to get the same kick. Same thing if you've ever had the difference between Thai hot and then Thai hot, if you know what I mean. Taste buds have become so desensitized to that to get the same kick, it's going to have to make a change in the brain. And because it's going to tie into the idea of pleasure pain, is if you want to change eating habits for, oh, this tastes like chalk, but it's healthy for me, versus, oh, but I just want to have this because it tastes so good. There's got to be a little bit of time there. And it's going to take a little bit longer too, because for your body to say, oh, whoa, we're putting new, better, or worse stuff in, it's going to have to change the percent of certain enzymes that it is making. And for that interim state, feeling a little bit of indigestion, bloating, or something like that. Well, how's that possible? You've just started eating good, healthy, nutritious food. It's because this is going to take anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks to catch up. So, if you're going to make a dietary modification, something that you know is healthy, it can take 3 to 6 weeks before there is actually a genuine change getting over that initial hurdle. Now, what would happen if you quit prematurely? I want to be healthy, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Are you? So there's one way example. Now here's probably the best and the favorite one that I'm going to point out right here. Fat cells. And the reason I'm pointing it out here with the idea of detox is because different chemicals that you have been exposed to over the years, your body uses adipose tissue, so fat cells, as a way of storing and isolating it from everything else. So as a person then is losing fat, this stuff to a certain degree has to mobilize, but it does not leave the body easily. And it's in part because so much of the stuff that we are exposed to these days did not exist in nature thousands of years ago. We have no metabolic pathway to get rid of it. So instead, we have to wait for the cells to completely turn over. The point is, it's a very, very, very slow process. And if we are not persistent in that, we can say, wow, look at all of this exercise, all of this dietary change, and all of this body fat that I have shed. Well, like they said in the video, the fat cell is still there, it just got smaller. You're still dealing with the same number that still contain the same thing. It's not till they die that starts to go away. And how long is that going to take? 8 to 25 years. So how many people, oh, I've been doing this for the last 6 months.
Yes.
Okay, this is good, you're on the right track, but the reality is that you need to do this as long as it's going to take. Yes, this is not something where, okay, when I get to my weight, I have arrived. Now I can go back to eating donuts. It doesn't work that way. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage, gold, fairy tale. Lungs. Lungs, the actual tissue themselves regenerates very, very slowly. I'll get to that a little bit. I couldn't find exact numbers on that. The best that I could find is that the tissues that are involved at the surface, so deep down in here on the surface that allow you to be able to breathe, they're renewed every 8 days. Same thing kind of as what's in the stomach is because if you think of the air that we do breathe, it's a rather inhospitable environment. The reason this can make a difference is because a person will not fix their lungs if they've been smoking for years, but even 1 week of stopping makes massive difference in a person's, and look at a person, typically speaking, if they're stopping the smoking, yeah, they might be gaining a bit of weight because water, so they're actually gaining some good stuff back in their life, but just look at their color in even 1 week. And it's because the tissue cells suddenly are able to get a better supply of blood that they were getting choked off from such a long time. Immune cells. These are turned over really, really, really quick. So some of you have heard me say the idea that I've got this flu and this has been going on for 3 weeks and all of this sort of stuff. That is a sure sign of a weak body. When people, human beings, if your immune system is strong, it is supposed to hit you hard for a few days at a time, because that's how long this stuff is. Whoa, danger, danger, danger. Spikes into action, takes care of it, wipes it out, and then you get back. Guys especially, because man flu is actually real. I can show you with papers that it is real.
It's real.
So if the immune system is weak, it's just not able to take, it's kind of okay, we'll take care of this, here we go. Then what happens is this just keeps going on and on and on and on. The beta cells, I'm not going to get too much into what they are, but they are in brief what produce your antibodies. So these are the markers that will say, oh, okay, you've got things. So if you have antibody responses, okay, it's going to be good because it means that these other white blood cells are able to target certain things in the body. But unless you have, this is the equivalent of short-term memory. Unless you also have white blood cells that are involved with long-term memory, you can be fighting the infection, that's good, no long-term memory, but then after 4 to 7 weeks, it can come back. So recurrent spikes of infection, things like that. Or things that can come back and hit you a long, long, long time down the track. Yeah. Tissue repair. So this is the idea that your body's going to be able to repair itself. Who can pronounce that word? I'm not going to make you do it. Hematopoietic stem cell. So what it is, this is your bone marrow, is what it is. The bone marrow is going to give rise to your white blood cells, your red blood cells, your skin cells, your bone cells, your muscle cells, all that sort of stuff, based on what you need at that moment. So if you've had a tissue wound, we need repair stuff, and it's going to make more of that particular stuff. Remember I said that amazing ability of the brain to coordinate all of that stuff, 0.25%? How in the world, when you've got the injury on your hand, is it coordinated that is focalized right there? That's the importance of what we're talking about here, and just also the magnitude of it. So these things are turned over about every 2 months, which interesting correlates with certain patterns that we see in chiropractic that you guys may have heard me talk about. Repair, rest, repair, rest. It has to do with cell turnover, going to the next stage, the next phase. I turned about this one, the skin, hair cells, they're turned over every basically 10 to 30 days. And the bones, this is the interesting one here. An osteoclast is a bone cell that breaks down bits of bone, weak stuff that's no longer used. An osteoblast is something that creates more bone. In other words, all of the structures with your bones, and this is important with the idea of osteoporosis, is that your bone is continuously remodeling itself based on the stresses or the demands that it's exposed to. So if there's a lot of destructive forces and you're starting to spiral down, these things are breaking the bone down like this. And these ones, they're trying to keep it upright, but they can't quite do it. So not only is that a process called osteoporosis, it's also a process that is going to be called osteoarthritis. Now, because we typically can't escape that force of gravity on planet Earth, osteoarthritis typically, once that degenerative process is sinking in, it typically doesn't disappear. But your body can still make changes to accommodate so that it's not deteriorating at the same kind of rate. And I point this out then, the idea when we're looking at our organ turnover. So the full body system, how long does it take to make a new fill in the blank? Your liver is the only organ in your body that's capable of almost regenerating itself 100%. You can wipe out 90% of a person's liver and it will regrow in just 6 to 12 months. So liver is the one that's responsible for detoxification of the body. Now, if it needs to do long-term storage, there's the adipose side of the equation. But what it means is that, okay, if a person is trying to detox their body, to cleanse and at least get that system operational, that's something they're probably going to need to do about that long. So it's not just a matter of, okay, I can do my weekend juice fast. That's part of it. But then it's still clean eating for 6 to 12 months if you want to make a genuine change. Skeleton, 10% per year. So if you're looking at the basically bone turnover, getting rid of the old, bringing in the new, 10% in a year. So all of the bones in your body, essentially, every 10 years, turn over. Which way do you want to be going with them? Do you want to be breaking them down? Too much acidy food, caffeine can do it. And actually, when it comes to osteoporosis, what do you think the number one most important thing is in the prevention of osteoporosis?
Moving your body.
Which is it?
Moving your body.
Moving
Correct.
your body.
Exercise.
Weight, specifically,
Yes.
weight-bearing exercise. Being, if you can't do anything, swimming is good, but you're buoyant. You need the force of gravity, because without the force of gravity, the bones and muscles get very weak. They find this out with the astronauts. You put them up into space very quickly. Hey, we don't need to be strong. Those osteoclasts, wipe them out. And they've got months of rehab when they get back on Earth after being there for really just a few weeks. So it's not the calcium. The calcium's super important. The vitamin D is super important. Weight-bearing exercise, number one, full stop. But not just for the sake of the bone, because everybody's heard the term osteoporosis. How about sarcoporosis? Sarco refers to your skeletal muscles. You can have really weak bones, but if your muscles are still strong, they will be able to absorb a good amount of the stress and you're going to be relatively okay. Flip of that is if a person is emaciated, they've been in the hospital for some reason, not moving around, the muscle has atrophied very quickly. They are the ones at greatest risk that getting out, that the muscle would have weakened and the bone no longer has the additional support. I unfortunately couldn't find any number about, well, how often is it that the skeletal muscles turn over in your body, but I know a couple of things. First up, what color is a muscle? Red. Even if you've never actually seen a muscle belly, they're red. The reason they're red is because they got a huge amount of red blood cells that are going to be giving them that color because of the movement, the energy, the oxygen that they need. So typically speaking, repair is pretty quick. Also, skeletal muscles, they come from these same hematopoietic stem cells, just like these. So I would think, at least logically, I couldn't find the exact number here, but I would say that your skeletal muscles, they probably are going to turn over at about the same rate as all the bones in your body too. So if you want to have sustainable long-term changes, by exercising, how long do you need to do it? It needs to be a daily habit, not just for a few lights, because otherwise you do it, and then it rebounds back.
So when you do exercise, do your muscles get more cells, or those cells just get bigger?
Both. So depending on the kind of exercise that you're doing, ideally what happens, and this is why you get sore, not just from lactic acid, but it causes a tear in the muscle. And the muscle, when it heals, it gets a little bit bigger, and sometimes it will also then create new muscle cells. Now you can artificially do that by injecting yourself with steroids. That promotes additional muscle cells, and that's going to cause the whole thing to bulk up. But there's consequences, of course, because then you're changing the internal state of the body. Far better than to just do it the sustainable, slow way. So this is one of those things when it comes to a person's health and longevity, just keep moving it, keep using it. The number of times that I've had to tell somebody, okay, you need to keep doing this exercise here, and how long should you do it? Until I tell you to stop. Me personally, or somebody of equal or greater qualification. Keep doing this until I tell you to stop. Because otherwise, you're going to do it until you're feeling good again.
Yes.
that doesn't make the necessary change, it comes back inevitably.
What are people doing the stem cell, what's it called?
Stem cell therapies?
Yeah.
This, time, stress, gravity, this is where we're getting into genetics and we're dealing with the state of life that we can't get into. I'm not going to say too much on this, but in brief, if there was the idea of an immortal cell that the body could completely turn over, we would be immortal. But that doesn't happen. Best that science can say is that the body, if everything was perfect, we're capable of living more than 100 years, but we don't for all of these reasons here. And part of it is because the DNA has, think of it more as a termination code or a cap on the end of it, something that's called a telomere. And that as the cells renew over a period of time, it keeps getting a little bit knocked off, a little bit knocked off, a little bit knocked off, a little bit knocked off. And when you finally start getting to the end, then the DNA is no longer able to repair itself. When the DNA of the body is not able to repair itself, then you no longer have the turnover. So people can have, because again, difference of chronological, biological age, accelerated aging, and because of certain kinds of injuries with irreparable damage, what they may say is, okay, well, we're going to inject you with stuff that your body is not capable of taking care of on its own. Now this actually, as an aside, is part of the reason why, I'm not sure about Australia, but at least in the US, the vast majority of medical expenses come to people in their last year of life. And it's usually because of heroic measures when the biological clock has said it is time.
Yes.
But for, it's like, no, we want to hang on to life. So we start trying to do incredible things that does prop things up. And again, eventually, no, we will all lose or win that battle depending on how you choose to look at it. Long answer to a short question. Did I get it? No.
Yeah.
Stem cells is helping the body in those instances where it's not able to make that regenerative thing on its own. But you can consider also, as I had said, this idea of, okay, what's happening with the coordination system in the body? Because how often are people, we're doing, it's like, okay, well, how many people, full stop, have health and medical issues, but they aren't taking care of themselves at all? Doctor, fix me. Poorer prognosis. Weird. People who typically do the best with medical care are the ones who go in the better state of health, because their body's better able to, they're already fit, they're active, they're doing the right things. Typically speaking, they have a better prognosis. Full stop. Now, the other side of the equation, the coordination side of that, how many people are taking care of their nervous system, their brain, their neck, their spine, their back, or, it's a little stiff, I'll get to that later, it's okay. It's only your control and your life system, that's it. So, point is oftentimes that's overlooked. Is it possible then, certainly no way to know that, but is it possible that that could be having an impact? Why is this system not sparking to life the way that it should be? Just a thought. We're getting close to the end there. Heart, as they had said in the video, turns over very, very slowly. Lungs, the same thing. I couldn't find a number for lungs. And it has to do with just the way that the tissues are able to repair. Again, the idea that the body turns itself over every 7 years is not completely true, because you have some ones, like the heart or like the deep tissues of the lungs, they typically don't turn over. So like an emphysema or something like that. Unlike the liver, the whole lung does not renew itself. So we need to take exceptionally good care of our hearts, of our lungs, but then also these. Because these do not change, full stop. The brain will rewire itself if it has had neuron damage, and it will find new pathways. So even people who have had strokes, paraplegia, even quadriplegia, the neurons in the system will work to try to remodel itself to get those messages through. But typically, it does not do so by creating new nerve cells. And the whole idea of the eye, when you're actually, this is going to be gross when you guys are looking at each other later, Your eye is actually an extension of your brain. Yeah, it's not truly a separate nerve or anything like that. And in fact, if you've ever been to the ophthalmologist where they look at the little light and they look into your eye, they're looking at the front of your brain.
So the fluid, the lens is the fluid that they're talking about.
No, the lens is it's the part on the front. Have you heard of the idea of cloudy lens, cataract, thing like that? Yeah. So same. It's a structure that is developed at the same time of the nervous system.
Yeah. But isn't the lens sort of a fluid-filled, elliptical structure like that?
I would have to go back to it's been a long time since I've looked at my eye anatomy to tell you the truth. I know it is elliptical like this. It's designed to refract and move the light so that you're able to see.
So that's filled with
It's
fluid, isn't it?
Well, the eye
'Cause
itself
that
is
can
filled
be,
with.
that can be punctured. You lose fluid.
Yes, I'm trying to. It's not aqueous humor. That's the actual eyeball itself.
Oh, that's.
I'd
what
have
I'm
to look
thinking
it
of.
up.
That's
Maybe.
what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So the idea is that the inside of the eye is clear. So its lens captures the eye, focuses, and then it passes like through water.
Yes.
It's received on.
Yes, okay.
Oh no,
So
it's
the lens is at the front.
Yeah, then it's received on the retina,
Yeah.
which detects the nerve signals, and then it goes back to the brain from there. I'd have to look up that exact one.
Yeah.
But the idea is that same thing does not go, it does not change over a period of time, which is again why we need to take care of the eyes. Fortunately, cloudy lens, if it's simply a matter of cataracts, that is one of the best medical procedures ever. I've never had it, but I've seen enough people who have had it done because they've needed it, and they're like, oh my God, life and day, night and day. So closing comments, very, very simple. The same question that we started with. The person that you are today is because of choices you made knowingly or unknowingly 10 years ago. The person you will be 10 years from now is because of what's happening today. So, okay, what is health? Do you want it? What does it look like to you, and what are you willing to do in order to get it? Are you really certain now knowing, okay, well, this is what's, not just this is what's involved, those 5 pieces. So are you able to adapt to what's going to go on in your life? Sleeping good, exercise, stress, but then taking care of that system that does not regenerate, does not renew, but that's going to coordinate all of this so that you are either going up or going down. And are you willing to stick with that to actually make the changes? Because last I checked, health, you still cannot buy it in a bottle. Health is going to come through those conscious, deliberate decisions. It's not easy, but as we said in the very beginning, aren't there things that you can look back, you'd like to say with 2020 vision, oh, I didn't realize that this is what would happen as the result of that. Otherwise, I would have made a different choice. Hopefully, I've been able to give just a little bit of perspective then on what some of these elements are, so that person that you will be, and then hopefully I'll know in 2029, you'll be saying, I'm doing great, I'm feeling even better than I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should be the goal, shouldn't it?